Hello, everybody, and welcome to Zelda Speedruns, broadcasting the Skyward Talk to Yerbal Tournament 2021. We got the grand finals for you today. It's Kitcot versus thraelyad. Commentating for us, we have Exto. Say hello, everybody.
Hello, guys. Once again, welcome to the final match in the 2021 Talk to Yerbal race. Hopefully, we're going to have an absolutely amazing race today. Kitcot and thraelyad, both known for good consistency and incredibly fast times. I believe Kitcot was definitely the number 1 seed, and I'm pretty sure Thray was the number 2 seed coming into this tourney, so it's really not a surprise that we are ending with this match. And hopefully, we'll have a very nice one here today. They both have PBs that are approaching 54. Kitcot, the current record holder, so maybe he does have a slight edge on Thray. But there is, of course, that break slide into Ancient Cistern, which could throw the game in anybody's direction today. So, anything can happen in the next hour. And I think we're just getting ready to start the race here. Now, both of them going with optimal file names, opting for one character. No bit of memery today. Gonna need all the advantage they can get. Being up against Kitcot or thraelyad, definitely a scary opponent. The race should be starting in about 20 seconds here. And we are off. So begins the final match in the Talk to Yerbal race. This match for all the glory. Winner becomes Toto's girlfriend or something. Looking like Kitcot having a slight RNG disc placement advantage over Thray at the beginning here. But there's definitely lots that can go wrong at the beginning of the run. Forgetting to talk to Fledge here is something that I don't think we've actually seen in the tourney yet. We've nearly seen everything that could possibly happen, but everybody has remembered to talk to Fledge so far. It is a bit of a staple in most Skyward Sword runs now. There are very few runs that don't just talk to Fledge at the beginning because of how overpowered bringing the log down in Sealed Grounds is with an early game file. But we'll see what happens. Yes, failing the Sky Reverse Bit Warp is definitely something that could happen. Even something as simple as failing the Pillar RBM, or yes, the Farron Pillar RBM. Pretty much anything, any mistake causing more than 45 seconds could be the determining factor of this race. So even something like Extending Blow could nearly decide it all, because once again, these guys both incredibly consistent, incredibly fast runners. Looking like Kitcot getting a slight advantage at the beginning here, but well, it's just the beginning, so plenty of time for Thray to catch up. We should have no issues with Death Post here. Kitcot and Thray, as I've said many times already, absolute veterans of the Yerbal category and Skyward Sword in general. So we should see some pretty nice Death Posts here. Somebody voiding out on Skyloft even could be the determining factor of this race. Hopefully we don't have to worry too much about cutscene skip. I believe they are both quite consistent runners at cutscene skip. So hopefully they do either both get it or both don't get it, so that we do have a nice and close race. Because somebody failing cutscene skip and somebody getting cutscene skip could pretty much just completely decide the race. So starting off in Skyward Sword, of course, we would like to get a file that has not completed the Wing Ceremony and does not have the Hero's Tunic, but has placed the Farron Pillar, and has unlocked Loftwing Diving. So now we're going to go RBM the Farron Pillar. Need to do it back in time, actually, and we need to RBM it so that we don't get the Hero's Tunic, because the Hero's Tunic likes to crash back in time a lot. Back in time and the Hero's Tunic just don't really agree. But we'll bit save on this layer here, because the title screen layer of Skyloft always has the statue open. And so they can use that to go get the Goddess Sword right away once they've RBM'd the Pillar. Looked like Kitcot had a slight fumble there. Small fumbles and back in time. Even just something as like accidentally pressing B one time, you may not think that it really matters. Maybe you take out an item, maybe you go back one screen. But back in time is so picky since you're controlling multiple things at the same time that even such a small mistake like accidentally tapping B, even if it doesn't seem to be detrimental, it can throw off your rhythm so much that it could pretty much after making a small mistake, it's very easy to make a very large mistake in back in time. So thankfully that didn't happen to Kitcot. Looked like he could have accidentally started the file, but thankfully he played it well and he pressed minus to bring up the Wii menu or the Wii Motion Plus tutorial and canceled it from there. So getting the Goddess Sword in back in time. Interestingly enough, we actually don't have the Goddess Sword on the file yet, but we need to get it in back in time so that we can place the pillar. And then after RBMing the pillar, we'll just go get the Goddess Sword. The timing for this RBM is pretty well established at this point. I think we'd all be pretty surprised to see either of them fail this trick. Kitcot looking like he plays it pretty safe there, and same with Thray. If anything, you're going to be early with that trick, and so they both waited just an extra split second just to make sure that they get the trick. Very wise choice. I guess it is interesting to note that Thray in particular is playing on Japanese over English. Actually, I'm not sure if Thray has English 1.0, but English 1.0 is a much safer route and is only about 20 seconds slower. But they are both on Japanese, so they both have to do a very difficult break slide in Ancient Cistern Basement that we'll see later. It's quite precise. Kitcot has failed it a few times in previous races in the tourney. I don't think Thray has failed it in the tourney yet, but it's definitely a possibility. It's a very, very precise break slide. Break sliding in Skyward Sword is very awkward. Holding ESS on the Wii nunchuck is just very difficult. Especially holding it in a good position and in a very good ESS. Even if Thray is from the North America, even if Thray is from North America, there is a good chance that he has English 1.1 if he didn't buy it on release. Because the 1.1 was released shortly after 1.0. But Kitcot, as I kind of alluded to earlier, does not have the luxury of choosing his version because Kitcot is from the United Kingdom. And so his options are PAL or Japanese. And the PAL version, well, there's nothing special about it, and it's really slow, to be perfectly honest. So Kitcot kind of forced to play on Japanese. And there's currently there's nothing special about the PAL version that isn't on another version. And it just so happens that all of the things that the PAL version has, that are version differences, the PAL version has the worst option. So PAL has slow text and no cistern clip, which is, well, it's considering this route ideally would have fast text and cistern clip. PAL is like 2.5 minutes slower than Japanese, I believe. Now talking to Groose, heading into the cave. Cave here does have a little bit of awkward movement, but from these veterans, don't think it'll be too much trouble. Both of them absolutely just breezing through the jump onto the slope there. Skyward Sword's jumping off slopes is kind of weird, because the game, if you have a very acute angle with a slope that you're trying to jump off of, the game will force you on, and it won't let you jump off unless you roll. And ideally there, you walk and jump off at a very acute angle. So it's actually quite difficult, but they both absolutely nailed it, getting through the cave with no troubles whatsoever. And we're heading into a section where we might see some big time differences because of tricks coming up. Now saving here so that we can use this file to head into Fair and later. 'Cause we do need a file that has not saved the loft, or sorry, not that has not saved the loftwing, but has not completed, that has saved the loftwing, but has not completed the loftwing tutorial. Because that layer of the sky doesn't crash in back in time, and we need to get to Farron in back in time. So the basic plan coming up here is reverse bitwarp a new file into the sky, or reverse bitwarp a copy of the file that we just saved into the sky. So that will be a file that has not saved the loftwing and has therefore not done the loftwing tutorial. While we're in the sky, we'll get loftwing diving using some text. We'll get the ability to dive off your loftwing using some text. And then actually just death warp back so that we can save the loftwing. Because if you don't save the loftwing, you can't call the loftwing. Then at that point, we will have saved the loftwing and enabled loftwing diving on that file, but not completed the wing ceremony. And so that'll kind of be our early game file setup complete. Before that, though, we do have cutscene skip. So there is a very long cutscene, the wing ceremony cutscene. And if you watch it, you actually get forced into the wing ceremony after, kind of. Well, we don't want to do the wing ceremony because we don't have to. And more than that, we don't want to watch the cutscene. So there's a 2-frame window in which you can side hop out of the cutscene trigger here. You can time it or mash it. I actually don't know what either of these guys do off the top of my head. But hopefully we'll see some consistency here. Kitcot getting the cutscene skip, so if Thray misses it, this could actually just be the end. It could is definitely very bad for Thray. Oh, but Thray also gets it, so we do still have a very close race here. That's what you want to see, especially in any match, really, but especially in the finals here. Really good to see both runners getting the cutscene skip there, because it does lose about 1.5 minutes if you do not get it. So now, as I had mentioned earlier, what we actually want to do here is clone file 3's data onto file 1. So we want to reverse bitwarp into the sky. But if we reverse bitwarp file 3 into the sky in its current state, what it'll do is spawn Link in the sky, not on his loftwing. So we actually need to do what we call like a prompt reverse bitwarp, which is where if your file is saved at a prompt or is a new game file, then instead of reverse bitwarping into the area and being in whatever position Link is already saved at, Link will actually just go directly into the position that you would expect him to. So, for example, loading into the sky, he'll be loaded onto his loftwing. So we'll dupe file 3's data over file 1, and then reverse bitwarp file 1 into the sky. Both of them opting to play it safe here. Very wise choice, coming from somebody who has failed the sky reverse bitwarp many times. So playing the safe option takes about 7 extra seconds. But the fast option, while not particularly difficult, is a little scary because you do have to start the file and fly the loftwing at the same time. And if you start the file too late or too early, which is both of those are very easy to do, then you lose a absolutely monumental amount of time, upwards of 5 to 10 minutes. So now there's that fight text that I had mentioned. So now they have the ability to dive off their loftwing and call it, and have not completed the wing ceremony, and have the Farron pillar open. And so now we are ready to move on with our Yerbal. Still a very close race here. Kitcot with a slight movement edge. He has been running the game quite a bit longer than Thray has. So it's not too surprising that Kitcot has a slightly better movement than Thray in the early game here. Now, we're saving the loftwing again, because remember, this file actually hasn't saved the loftwing, since it was a copy of the file that we saved from earlier. Yeah, a bit of an ironic bonk there. All right, so this is pretty much our early game file set completely complete. And we can now head on into Farron, where we can completely skip sealed grounds, because once again, The only purpose of this run is to talk to Yerbal, the Kitcot at the top of the great tree. Poor guy only gets seen in this category, not seen in any other category, so we made a category just for him. Kitcot with some unconventional holding Z strat there that I don't think I've ever seen before. Also playing it extremely safe, looking, I didn't count, but it looks like Kitcot did 12 or 13 flaps. You only need to do 11. And same with Thray, both of them playing it quite safe. Looking like they both did an extra flap or two. But wanting to take damage into Farron so that we can do back in time right away. So Kitcot and Thray both on phenomenal pace. Kitcot probably not too far behind his personal best, if I had to guess, actually. If not ahead. So now we load into Sealed Grounds. Sealed Grounds Layer 0 in particular, because we don't have the Hero's Tunic. But that's not a problem, because we can completely skip it anyway. There's actually no spike at the bottom in this layer. But that's not a problem, because we don't want to do Sealed Grounds anyway. We don't want to talk to Impa. We don't want to get the Revitalizing Potion. We don't want to talk to Gorko. We want to go straight into Farron and get the Slingshot. Now, copying file 3 over file 2. So file 3 is saved behind the waterfall at the start of the game. Keep that in mind for later. Then we can run off and call the Loftwing. We can't automatically load into the sky because you do need the Hero's Tunic for that. So they will have to run over, or fly over rather, into the sky loading zone. But they can load in with file 1. And that will not crash. A couple of flaps, and then a bit of a tricky dive here. You're going to see this dive many, many times throughout this run, where you do 3 or 4 flaps if you want to be safe, and then you dive into the Farron Pillar from quite far away. It can be difficult because you do only have the clouds to line up with, although you can use the Triforce on the title screen, or the splash screen, sorry, to kind of judge how straight you're flying and adjust using that. Although that does have its own risk, because if you stay on the splash screen for too long, it will start like the cutscene that plays at the beginning of the game. You do have to stay on it for quite some time. It's not really too much of a risk during that dive, actually, but in other areas of back in time, it can be if you're not paying attention. To reset that timer, all you have to do is go into the file select or open up the Wii Motion Plus tutorial thing and close it. Hopefully, we won't be seeing that cutscene. Generally, you don't really see that cutscene. And hopefully today will be no exception. You can see that log that 3 just pulled down. That's why we had to talk to Fledge much earlier. Kitcot turning around to not activate the Lake Floria cutscene. It doesn't soft lock right away, but it does lose some time. And then he's going to be interested in bit saving file 1 and file 2. So file 2 was a copy of the file that was saved behind the waterfall. We're going to use this file later to go get Farror's Courage so that we can reverse bit warp into the Farron trials, so that we can get the scale, so that we can go into Ancient Cisterns, so that we can go into Yerbal. Go talk to Yerbal, rather. So the goal of the run, again, is to talk to Yerbal. And that can be achieved by reverse bit warping into the Great Tree from the last statue in Ancient Cistern. But to get to the last statue in Ancient Cistern, we actually need the Water Dragon scale. And so then to get the Water Dragon scale, we need Farror's Courage. And then to get Farror's Courage, what do we need? We need to open up the Thunderhead. But that can be done with a relatively simple back in time trick that you'll see later. Now, we actually do need an item to talk to Yerbal. Even if you could get to Yerbal without an item, you do need an item to wake him up, either the slingshot or the beetle. If you could get the bow, it wouldn't work. The whip won't do anything. The claw shots won't do anything. It does need to be the slingshot and the beetle, or the beetle rather. But since if you get the beetle without getting the slingshot, then the game actually just soft locks. You are kind of forced to get the slingshot in this category, but that's not necessarily that bad, because we will be using it a few times, mostly to talk to Yerbal, but we'll also use it to load some stuff in back in time. And now we go on the Kikwi quest. Bit of an infamous part of speedruns, of Skyward Sword speedruns in the community. The slingshot, it takes a long time. It has a lot of cutscenes attached to it, and is generally not very interesting. So there is a bit of downtime here. But remember, the ultimate goal is to get into Ancient Cistern so that we can reverse bit warp into the Great Tree so that we can talk to Yerbal. But we do need the slingshot to wake him up. I guess I can use some of this time to talk about how back in time works in a tad bit more detail if you're not familiar with it. So I had mentioned that we talk to Fledge so that that log comes down in the sealed grounds. And the reason that happens is basically there's a bit of area in memory that's shared between locations. So in one location, or whenever you go into one of the different scenes in Skyward Sword, so for example, Faron Woods is a scene, and the sealed grounds and behind the temple is a scene. So kind of like one of the greater areas of Skyward Sword. The game loads into memory from storage a couple of flags, actually quite a few flags, and then in that area stored things like which rocks you've blown up, if you've talked to certain NPCs, like if you've bonked to pick up rupees that are hiding in things, goddess wall activations, just kind of map specific stuff like that you may or may not have done at any point. And since it loads it into the same area, no matter which area you go into, normally that wouldn't really matter at all, but since when you select a file on the title screen, what it does is it loads that data as if you just walked into that area in the game. What you can do is actually be in a completely different area and then you can be in an area and load a different area's flags, but since it loads into the same spot that the game is looking at for the area you're in, it can do some pretty unexpected stuff. So for example, Fledge and that log in sealed grounds just happen to be in the same bit in memory. It's merely a pure coincidence that they happen to line up. As is a lot of things in Skyward Sword, because a lot of the things that happen in Back in Time are just because of the structure of the game's data, which, as far as we're concerned, is just a mere coincidence. Nobody getting the Lopsa roll. I mean, if I was in the finals, I wouldn't go for it either. I can't really blame them. Like I said, they're both very fast. Kitcot looking like he's slowly, ever so slowly inching forward, pulling ahead of Thray. But they both definitely want all the advantage they can get in this race. And while Lopsa roll does save about 1 second if you get it, if you're early, then you lose, I think, 6 or 7 seconds. So definitely not worth it to go for it, especially since it's a frame perfect motion input. Nearly done the slingshot here. One more Kikwi. Ulo is the only one left for Kitcot. Thray coming up on Lopsa here. Not Lopsa, Urla. Once in a while, Urla will have a very weird positioning in the grass. We didn't see it. I think we saw it once during the rando here. During the Yerbal tournament here. Not the rando. The rando tournament is coming up. But if you don't notice it, then you can cut the grass where Urla currently is, and then Urla ends up scooting over to some other grass, and it loses a little bit of time. And as in typical Skyward Sword fashion, it may not lose a lot of time, but the cutscene is just long enough for you to feel bad about the silly mistake that you just made. Kitcot coming up on Slingshot here. Basically, no mistakes from Kitcot so far. A few bonks, but very, very, very clean gameplay from Kitcot all around so far. I guess not that Thray has been playing poorly. Thray has put on a phenomenal performance. It's just Kitcot has been slightly better at every step. And that kind of really showcases the importance of movement in Skyward Sword. It is the #1 differentiating factor between, I guess, mid-tier and higher tier, and the higher of the higher tier play is movement. And this is a beautiful showcase of that, because Thray hasn't made any mistakes so far, really. It's just his movement has been slightly slower than Kitcot's at every point in the run. And so, I'm no expert, but this looks like he's about 25 or 30 seconds behind. Now, once again, no mistakes. All right, so now that we have the slingshot, now we're interested in opening up the Thunderhead so that we can go get Pharaoh's Courage. And the easiest way to do that is to RBM it open. So, thankfully, the flag, this one is slightly complicated, but basically, a flag associated with opening Skyview is one of those flags that's in the shared memory spot, and it correlates to the cutscene for opening the Thunderhead. So basically, we're going to RBM that cutscene, similar to what we did earlier with the Farron Pillar. And then Deep Woods has a little bit of special stuff where we actually don't have to commit flags. So it's going to be a very, very fast RBM here once they get into Skyview. Hopefully, we see an extending blow here. Hopefully, we see two, in fact. I imagine they'll both definitely go for it. Kitcot going for the extending blow here. I'm sure Thray will as well. Let's see if we do get one. It does save a fair amount of time, 30 seconds or so. Ooh, Kitcot with a bounce that looked pretty good. But unfortunately, it just didn't work. Didn't work for him. So that's the way that extending blow do be sometimes. The Bokoblin's knockback distance is random, so you do kind of have to hope that it works. And we'll see if Thray gets it here. Kitcot coming up on the backup trick, Cube Warp. Oh, it looks like Thray didn't even go for it. That's an interesting choice, because it does save a lot of time. So both still on an even playing field. Kitcot getting Cube Warp first try. It's not a very hard trick, but it does seem to be a trick that even the fastest of fast runners mess up from time to time. So you can see there Thray just aiming a little too far left. And Thray getting its second try. So that's pretty much the first time loss that one has had over the other that isn't movement is Thray's second try Cube Warp. Very impressive that they've both managed to go even just halfway through the run without any... Well, that's still not a large mistake, but it's a mistake. Kitcot with a pretty substantial lead at this point, but Thray definitely not out of the game. You can't really say anything until that final reverse bit warp into the Great Tree is done. Until that point, if they're within a minute or so of each other, it's pretty much anyone's game. Because all the leader has to do is make one back-in-time mistake, even if it's right at the beginning of a back-in-time, and they're pretty much neck and neck again. So entering Skyview here, the only reason we want to enter Skyview is that we can open Skyview. The game just forces you to go in after. Now immediately leaving so that we can do that RBM to open up the Thunderhead. And once again, that'll be done on file 2. So it'll be done on a different file than what they're playing on right now. So you can see here, Kitcot will select file 1, which will load the flags in Deep Woods. So those are the flags that he just set. And then he will load file 2, or select file 2 rather. And then when he gains control of Link, a cutscene will start. So we'll start the file just before that. And then you can just barely make out the Thunderhead starting cutscene at the end. And so if you start a file and then set a flag, since when you start a file, it loads those flags. If you set a flag during the fade out, then that flag actually stays set onto the file that you're playing on. So the Thunderhead is actually now open for both players. Not only would Extending Blow have saved time back in Deep Woods, but Extending Blow would have also skipped this cutscene that Kitcot just finished and Thray is going into right now. So, Extending Blow is a substantial time saver. Now, it's not all perfectly safe on the way to the Isle of Songs. They do have tornadoes to worry about and sky tails as well. Getting hit once isn't that bad. It does lose a good amount of time, but it's recoverable. What is really bad is if they fall off their loft wing and don't die, because what that'll do is infinitely void out Link. Because this is file 2. This is a copy of a file that was saved before saving the loft wing. So they don't even have loft wing diving. Or sorry, they don't have loft wing calling. So they can't call their loft wing if they fall off. So they'll actually just be stuck infinitely voiding out. So they do need to be very careful to avoid tornadoes, especially if they get hit once. Looks like they both take it safe, both take the proper path to avoid all tornadoes. And so the sky tails generally aren't too much of a problem here. And neither is landing on the Isle of Songs. Thray actually did mistakenly dive off his loft wing too early and not land on the Isle of Songs in a very early match against Muzu in this tourney. But I don't think he'll be making that mistake again. It's a very easy one to not make again. Just have to, I'll press D-pad down a tad bit later. Now, Kitcot playing it very safe, landing on the Isle of Songs. And I imagine Thray will do the same. Now just a matter of solving the puzzle. Nothing too interesting here, although it's kind of interesting to note that this is actually the first recorded solution by Indie back in, I think, early 2012. It is the fastest solution, and like it is the fastest possible solution to this puzzle, and it will never change. And it's already like 9 years old. A little bit of interesting Skyward Sword trivia. Kitcot getting Pharaoh's Courage here. Next up, he's going to want to reverse bitwarp file 1 into the Farron trial so that he can begin to get the Water Dragon scale so that he can swim into Ancient Cistern. So this back in time is a little bit convoluted. There's a lot that you want to do. Basically, the end goal is to end up in Farron, in back in time, with the trial open. And so there's a handful of hoops and soft locks that we have to avoid and jump through in order to be able to get into that position. But, you know, these players, they're both very consistent, very fast. Hopefully we don't see any issue with that. And hopefully we don't see any issue within the trial as well. Because of the weird method of entering the trial, we actually have to get caught. And if you forget to get caught after collecting a few tiers, well, you soft lock at the very end of the trial and have to restart. And that actually poses a really big problem because you want to copy some files during this back in time, and that makes it near impossible to recover. So this is a very scary point in the run for any mistakes. It's also interesting to note that file 1 is saved in Deep Woods. So right now, if they select file 1, what's going to happen is it's immediately going to start playing the Thunderhead opening cutscene. So they have to be very careful to not select file 1 while Link is standing on the ground and not already in a cutscene. So that's why you see them selecting file 1 and then selecting another file right away at the beginning, selecting another file on the way to the statue, saving file 1, then immediately selecting another file, and then not selecting file 1 all the way until they've jumped off the dock. It's because if you select file 1 while standing there, you will get soft-locked and have to redo the back in time. If you wait long enough, it'll actually crash, but you have a pretty substantial amount of time before that happens. Kitcot with a slightly weird dive, not too much trouble. Now, one of the hoops that we kind of have to jump through in order to get this back in time to work is coming up here. So we're actually going to use the Kick Elder teleport trick in order to kind of advance our way through Deep Woods a little, or not Deep Woods, but Faron Woods a little quicker than we otherwise would. And in order to get the teleport to work, since the teleport is actually just the Elder giving you the slingshot second cutscene, so the one after you pick up the slingshot, we actually need to enter Sealed Grounds with a file that doesn't have the slingshot, and then enter Faron Woods with a file that does have the slingshot. And this will put him straight into the second cutscene from the Kick Elder, right in the middle of Deep Woods, and skip a lot of walking. Now, from here, we need to remember that file 2 is the file that has the song. So file 2 is the file that's going to be able to open the trial, but we actually entered the area with file 1. So we can load the trial being open flag in with file 2 just by selecting it, but there is a bit of a problem, and that's that the trial won't actually show up unless we reload the area. So the easiest way to do that is to actually just die with file 2. And we also need to save file 1 here, because we're going to reverse bit warp file 1 into the trial. And since the trial is on this map, this is just a really easy place to save at, so that when we reverse bit warp, our coordinates will be nicely lined up. So save file 1, check the statue with file 2, and then die with file 2. And that'll reload the area with the flag set so that they can reverse bit warp in with file 1. Then they're immediately going to copy file 3 over file 2. This is the reason that failing this back in time is very bad, or failing the trial, is because they actually copy over their file that has the song. So they no longer have the song, or Kitcot no longer has the song, and Thray is about to no longer have the song on any file, so they will not be able to redo this reverse bit warp. Then one last little bit of file management, and then we'll see Kitcot reverse bit warp in here. Looked like perfectly fine timing from Kitcot. It's not a particularly hard reverse bit warp. The hardest reverse bit warp in the run is right at the end, the one into the Great Tree. Now let's see if Kitcot gets caught after 2 tiers here, or if he's going to go for Randolph, or whatever the name of the last watcher is. Looking like he's getting caught right away. So once again, this is intentional, and it's to avoid a soft lock that will occur later as a result of us reverse bit warping in if we do not get caught. And like I kind of had mentioned, it is slightly faster to get caught by the very last watcher, but nearly everybody gets caught by the first one there. Although that is a good point. The Sky reverse bit warp might be considered the hardest reverse bit warp in the run, although definitely only if you do the hard one. Like the easier variant of the Sky reverse bit warp is really not very difficult. The reason that it soft locks is because we enter the trial not through entering the trial normally, but through reverse bit warping in. So we never watch those introductory cutscenes. So it's something to do with those introductory cutscenes and the tier counter being weird, and getting caught fixes it somehow. It's actually not very well understood, and I am far from an expert on this matter in particular. But it's basically just due to the reverse bit warp, if you're all right with that answer. It's also interesting to note, maybe Kitcot will show it off here. Okay, no. But if they actually step into some waking water, for the same reason that it'll soft lock at the end, because we reverse bit warped in, they'll actually kind of get soft locked on the waking water. And the waking water around this like little island here, where Thray is, that's not very bad because the waking water moves. So eventually you will get out of your soft lock. But if you accidentally step into some waking water that doesn't move like that, then well, what happens is there's a cutscene that plays, and there's one frame between each time the cutscene plays, and you can side hop on that frame, or backflip, or front hop. And so you need to one hop at a time jump out of the waking water. And it's pretty difficult because, once again, it is a single frame. Both of them having no troubles with the trial. It's really not too difficult, but it was fairly clean. Kitcot making great pace. Thray making great pace as well, actually. This has been a phenomenal race so far. Pretty much only one mistake in total so far. One medium-sized mistake in total so far, which was failing. Well, I guess Kitcot voided out in Deep Woods when going for extending blow, and Thray missed cube warp once. But with these paces, it's very likely that these will be the two fastest times that we see in the tourney, like in the whole tourney. The tourney started off with most runs being 1 hour plus, and has ended up with most races having a 56 or a 57 minute run as the victor. Kitcot, though, here honestly might be on 55 pace, which is a very impressive time. I think there's only 3 people with a 55 XX run, if I'm not mistaken. Both of them also remembering to push down that log earlier. So the first log that Thray runs up here comes down regardless, but the one that Thray is approaching now, you actually have to remember to push down manually. And if you forget that, well, I guess you get to enjoy running around the useless part of Deep Woods. And then we get to use this stool that I didn't know was here until this category was routed to heal up. And the reason that we need to do this is because we're about to reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern. In particular, we're going to reverse bit warp into the basement. But they're going to take 4 hearts of fall damage, but they're going to also land in the I don't know what it's even called, like the corruption, like the purple goop. And because of where they land, they need to get through a lot of it. So they're going to do a trick called the break slide. Thray accidentally saying no to the statue. But landing in this purple stuff, it does deal damage. And so they're going to have a short amount of time to do a relatively precise break slide all the way out so that they can get the boss key. This is the big difference between English and Japanese here. English can just reverse bit warp into Ancient Cistern with a statue on Skyloft and then use the 1.0 exclusive Cistern clip. But Japanese does need to do this precise break slide because Cistern clip is patched on the 1.1 version of this game. And surprisingly enough, the Japanese version is actually the 1.1 version, not 1.0. Which is kind of unusual. Normally, if anything, it's the other way around with Zelda's history. If there were a 1.0 Japanese version, it would be the fastest version for everything by far. And it would just be the definitive best version for speedrunning this game. But because of the Cistern clip, once in a while, very rarely, but once in a while, there are some times where English is not faster. English is never faster, but maybe a much easier run with a small time loss. So this back in time is really not too bad. Just need to get to Ancient Cistern in back in time. So nothing too interesting here. Most of it's stuff that we've seen before. I guess the part that will be new is the part kind of right at the end where we go and we enter Lake Floria. Also, this log hop actually that Kitcot just did is new. Just a nice little time save. Flags happen to line up where we have the ability to do that in this category. Kitcot pressing A there. Interesting. I thought he would have gotten the Lake Floria cutscene, but Japanese files must be different than I remember. And here it's actually important to enter the Lake Floria waterfall area with a file that does not have the scale. Because if you enter this area with the file that has the scale, the waterfall will be flowing. It will not have, the waterfall will exist, and it will block your way into the Ancient Cistern. And then we can conveniently use the slingshot to update Link's inventory flags with file 1 selected, which will load file 1's inventory data. And then we'll see how Kitcot does his break slide here. They need pretty darn good break slides. Kitcot looking good so far. His last break slide here. That's a good one. Kitcot's going to be perfectly fine. Thray in a really scary position now, where if he fails this break slide, then he's going to be very scared. What happened to Thray? I didn't notice anything, although it does look like he's further behind than he was before. Perhaps... maybe not, actually. Kitcot has pulled a substantial... Maybe he failed the falling into Farron. He dove onto his loft wing. Okay, so yes. According to Deesh, he had to recall his loft wing because either it was an accident or he wasn't going to make it into Farron. So, Thray here once again in a very scary position where he does basically need to get this break slide, or Kitcot can fairly easily come away with the race. Not a super strong break slide start there for Thray. Taking his time to line up the second ESS. Very strong second ESS. So he does need a pretty good third one. Oh, and Thray gets it as well. That's what you love to see. That's what we were all hoping for at the very start of this race. Both of them getting cutscene skip and getting the break slide first try. Kitcot going to the Wii menu while climbing the rope for some reason. A little bit strange. But that's great. That means that we're going to have a close end, and it's pretty much all going to come down to who doesn't fail the reverse bit warp into the Great Tree. Kitcot still, by the way, on phenomenal pace. Definitely 55 pace, if I do say so myself. And Kitcot also going to opt for the safety save here. Definitely a very wise choice, because if the runners do die, they will be put all the way back into Skyview because of the way that reverse bit warping works. So they both have the boss key. Now they're just interested in getting the whip, not because we need to fight Koloktos, but because we actually just need to get to the last statue. But to get to the last statue, you need to raise the statue, and to raise the statue, you need the whip. That means we're going to need one small key to open the whip door. Kitcot with a small fumble on the directional puzzle there. So Thray looking to be about a minute behind. And Kitcot playing it extremely safe in this very awkward room in Ancient Cistern. This room is... Yeah, there's a lot of things in this game which aren't particularly hard, but if you make a slight mistake, then it kind of compounds. And this room is a great example of that, where the movement isn't too hard, but if you mess it up slightly, then it's very easy to get stuck somewhere. Both of these runners are using real Wii remotes on real Wiis with real Japanese discs. So no emulators allowed. In the speedrunning community of Skyward Sword, we disallow emulators for stuff like this because emulators are very inaccurate for Skyward Sword. Wii Motion Plus are... Like, there are some tricks that are possible on Dolphin, that are not possible on or on console. Also, playing this game with any other controller like really sucks, and I don't know why you would ever do that. So a bit of a scary setup here to hop down to the whip area. These runners do not have the sailcloth, so if they are going to live through a big fall with one heart, they are going to need to catch a ledge. Not particularly hard or anything. There is a setup for it, although it always looks like you're going to miss it, so it makes me a little scared every time. But Kitcot with the whip. The only thing standing between him and his victory now is Yerbal supremacy. Toto's love is the last reverse bit warp into the Great Tree. This is actually an incredible race, an incredible showcase of these two runners' skill. Thray has by no means had a slow run. Thray has had a very good run so far, but Kitcot has just had an absolutely phenomenal run. Now, one last slightly tricky thing. It's pretty lenient, but these runners, they are on one heart. And so when they reverse bit warp into the Great Tree, they are potentially going to take some fall damage. So they need to stand in a position such that when they reverse bit warp in, they void out. And then that void out animation, when Link is doing his stand-up animation, he like lands back on a platform so that they don't take any damage. Now, Kitcot looking like he got the position with no problem. Oh, Kitcot activating Janin, the absolute best Stalfos in the game. Style Master Janin, named by Kitcot. Not Kitcot. Named by CJ. And he got the fascinating Style Master dealing a quarter heart of damage. It's very strange, but sometimes the Style Master just only deals a half heart in hero mode, quarter heart in normal mode. Okay, it may have partially been named by myself, but CJ said it. Both runners looking like they have perfectly fine positioning, standing on the, well, corner of circles don't exist, but they're both standing on it, so maybe it does. Ooh, Thray with a little cheeky jump slash right at the end to land on this top platform. A nice catch by him. Although, even with such fine moves, unless Kitcot makes a little bit of a mistake here at the very end, it is going to be Kitcot's victory. Kitcot having no issue going into Farron. Going to be doing something very similar here to what we did earlier. So we're going to be doing the Kikwi Elder Slingshot Teleport. We don't really have a name for this trick. I think we called it the Kikwi Elder Teleport is kind of the name that's been sticking around. And that'll put us right beside the Great Tree. And we can once again load in the scale with a slingshot by selecting file 1 and shooting a slingshot to load file 1's inventory flags. And then start file 1 and dash into the Great Tree at the same time, but making sure to start the file before dashing in. Now, Kitcot here. Very last stretch, taking the 1 second faster route that has a little bit of weird movement by jumping down and not taking the rope. Shooting the slingshot to load file 1's inventory flags. Not opting for an extra fast dash here, but playing it a little safe. Starting the file, dashing in, looking like he's going to take the victory here. He's assuming his position is fine, which I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Voiding out, landing on the platform beneath, and it looks like it is going to be Kitcot's victory. And this is an absolutely phenomenal run by Kitcot. This is like what, a mid 55, an absolutely insane time. I think if this was somebody else, this would be second place on the leaderboard behind none other than him himself. Opting to kill the Keys. He did actually die to the Keys in his PB, so it's good that he did that. And yeah, an absolute beast of a run from Kitcot here. Three coming in at the end, getting the Monster Claw, but Kitcot finishing with a time in the 55:20s. An absolutely phenomenal time. Second place on the leaderboard if he wasn't already first place. A huge congratulations to Kitcot for taking home the Yerbal tourney victory.
Yay.
How do you feel, man?
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Jesus Christ, that was actually quite good. I was quite
that run was amazing.
It was like
that
14 seconds off my
so
back.
fast. And
Yeah.
not only was your run fast, but Thray's run was also fast. Thray's run was only a 56. A 56 is the second fastest time we've had in these are the two fastest runs that we've had in the tourney up until this point.
Yeah. I'd be lying if I said this was an easy match. I think Thray kept the pressure up. Like I think I was watching the restream the entire time. He was never like more than 30 seconds behind me, so he was like constantly giving me pressure. I was constantly nervous. So, like, you would not believe how much my hands were shaking during that break slide. You would not believe.
Oh, I definitely noticed, and I believe I mentioned it, that both of you definitely took your time lining up your ESS positions there.
Oh, yeah.
I think Thray's was a little close. Thray didn't have a super strong first little sprint before he took his first bit of damage, so it was a little scary. But I think the biggest distance between you guys was right when Thray had done something at the beginning of the back in time to go into Ancient Cistern. So Thray, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Tell me about your run.
Yeah, I messed up the skydiving into Ancient Cistern, or to the Farron Pillar, which was really sad. But other than that, it was pretty good. It was decent.
Pretty good. You just said a 56. Yeah. That is a phenomenal run.
These are all times that against any other opponent would have probably wiped the floor. But
like,
yeah,
you were only 15 seconds. Both of you were only 15 seconds behind your PBs. That is amazing.
Yeah,
That's
well,
true. It could have been better though.
Yeah,
It was interesting to see that you didn't actually even go for extending blow.
Yeah, I was kind of banking on Kitcot getting failing it, so I would be slightly ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Like, yeah, if he does,
that didn't actually pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never get extending blow. Basically, I feel like I'm extremely unlucky with it. So.
Yeah, going with the safe option. Yeah. No, that was very fun. Just the entire tournament, like it's been crazy. But yeah, shout out to all the runners, especially Thray for this final match. Just like keep putting on the pressure. It was great.
I don't think we could have asked for a better final. Absolutely phenomenal performance from both of you.
Absolutely, yeah. GG.
And yeah, congratulations for taking home the Yerbal tournament victory. You are the Yerbist out of all of us. Congratulations on
Yerbist.
acquiring Tato's love.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, normally this is where we talk about like the mistakes that happen, but you both basically had a perfect run.
Well, I mean, the biggest mistake for me was definitely the skydiving. I think that lost a significant amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think I was
Skydiving is
going into like, coming off whip. I was 4 seconds ahead, but then Janon happened. So yeah,
Yeah, it was a nice cameo from Janon.
yeah.
And I think that's going to be about it for the Yerbal tourney.
Yeah.
All right
so,
then. Ready to wrap
As one
up?
tournament finishes, another one begins.
Oh yes.
Yeah, we do have the
Yeah.
rando tourney.
Yep.
Yes, that's starting tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We have the Skyward Sword Randomizer 2021 Winter Tournament, seeding race number 1. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. And then on Sunday, if I have my numbers right here. Yeah, on Sunday we have seeding race number 2 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, more Skyward Sword action coming up on ZSR over the next couple of months, which is going to be fantastic. Anything else, runners, or shall I wrap this up?
You can wrap it up.
All right.
Yeah.
So I want to thank our runners, Kitcot and thraelyad. I put their links in the chat. Please follow them if you haven't done so already. And thank you to Exto for commentating. Did an awesome job. Over on ZSR, we have 2 Ocarina of Time Randomizer tournament matches happening on ZSR 2, which we're going to rate in a moment. We have Sparks versus GSK8. And on ZSR 3, we have Riley versus Tom Poos, or however you say that name. I'm really bad at these pronunciations sometimes. So, we've got lots of Ocarina of Time randomizer stuff happening. Friday, tomorrow, we have Pink Kitty Rose versus Vodzilla at 12 p.m. And yeah, it's just a lot. I'm going to link to the schedule here because I'm not going to read all this stuff out. It's going to take forever. So there's the schedule for you right there. I hope you all had a great time, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!